Well, hello. This is Kenneth Camp from KennethACamp.com, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Dr. John Duncan. I know he's preferred me to say just John Duncan, but he does have his doctorate, and John and I go way back. We went to Howard Payne University together, and I know to us it seems like that was just a few years ago, but when we look at the calendar, right, John, it's been many years. But John is a teacher, a pastor, and currently an author, and so that's what brings us here today. As I wanted to introduce you to John and his new book. So welcome, John. It's good to have you.
Thank you. I thank you for the privilege of being together and here on Skype, and also remember those good days at Howard Payne, football, and all the great things that we did. And we pastored the same church.
That's true. Yep.
Yeah, Locker Baptist Church.
Absolutely.
Where if you had the same experience I had, ran about 12 on Sunday and had 28 one Sunday when the Boy Scouts showed up. What a day.
Yeah, that's about the same experience for sure. But it was a good one, good experience, and good memories. But I do want to give John an opportunity to talk about his new book, and the title of his book, and we'll see if we can see it here, but it is Sacred Space, The Art of Sacred Silence, Sacred Speech, and the Sacred Ear in the Echo of the Still Small Voice of God. John gave me a copy of this book a couple months ago, and I was not in my house no longer than 5 minutes, and my wife took it out of my hand and read it before I had a chance to. But I've read it, and it's very timely for me personally, but also I think for us today in our church today and believers. So just want to give John an opportunity to talk a little bit about his book. And so I have some questions here, John. First of all, how do you define sacred space? I know you do that in your book, but I know the subtitle goes into it a little bit, but how do you define it?
Well, sacred space is to me a simple concept of creating space, whether it's daily, and one of the things that I talk about in the book is extended periods, maybe a day, maybe a week, space where you can just get away from technology, get away from the hectic pace, get away from the busyness of your lives, and just pause long enough to listen to God, to talk to God, and allow God to speak to you. And I think one of the things that I discovered not only as a pastor observing people, but as a pastor who was very, very busy, is the need to create times where you don't really have something to do, because all of us have a lot to do. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the big things that drove me to write the book and to even title it Sacred Space was the whole concept, something that I mentioned briefly in the book. I think we're really over technologized.
Right.
Can't say the word. There's so much technology, and we're so glued to our cell phones, our computers, and all the technology that in a sense it's rewiring our brains, and we can't calm down enough to be reflective, maybe even to think about Christ, maybe to talk to Christ, maybe to listen to Christ. And so sacred space is an effort, and I think a conscious effort, to focus on the sacred, on Christ, His Word, and to create this space, which means time and a place where you can enter into, deepen your relationship with Christ.
That's good, John. That's really good. And I enjoyed reading through that, and like I said, it was very timely for me personally, and I appreciate God's timing in that, placing that book in my hand. You writing it and then putting it in my hand. You've kind of touched on it a little bit, but did you want to expound any more about why you think it's so important for us today to have that sacred space? You described kind of what it is, but why is it so important for us today?
Well, I think in days past, I mean, we could go back even 20 years, we weren't as busy. I mean, I observed about 8 or 9 years ago as a pastor, having had 3 daughters who were growing up and knowing that we were very busy. At one time, our daughters were in 3 different schools, which means 3 different schools for athletics and music and those kind of things. But when my youngest daughter was in high school, it was about the time that cell phones really got amped up. And something happened. along with the technology that's the hyper part of technology, it's just suddenly inundated us and then it's amped up. What you saw is a cultural shift where you had select sports and all these other activities that weren't just centered around school or church.
Right.
Then you add the pressure that mom and dad or parents are under because of the pressures of corporate America and success and all of that. And I'm not saying any of that is bad, so don't hear me saying that.
Mm-hmm.
But all those three things were in collision. And out of that, what happened was, it's almost like an explosion. It was so overwhelming that we couldn't really take time to stop and listen to God, to Christ, and enter into the sacred. And so I think that people, in my personal opinion, we're just too busy. We're over-technologized, and we really need to find a way to say no to some things. And a part of saying no to some things is entering into that sacred space so that we can.
Mm.
And I don't really know going forward, with the advances in technology that have come and that will come, it's not going to get any easier. And so I think it's important that we make a conscious effort to say, even if it's 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, I don't, care when a person does that. Or maybe it's 30 minutes you turn off the radio going into work.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I obviously talk about in the book is I like to go to the beach or the mountains, or I like to go to Cambridge where I can find places to do those kind of things, create the sacred space. But the importance of it is it's for your own soul, for your own life, and maybe in this culture for your own sanity.
Right. I agree. Well, you alluded to my next question there. What does that sacred space look like for you? You said you like going to the beach. I know you have a family home in North Carolina, I believe it is.
Yeah.
And Cambridge, where you got your doctorate. What's that look like for you?
Well, one of the things that I used to do, and I actually write about this early in the book, is I would go to North Carolina once, maybe twice a year, and I would go for 3 or 4 days, and I wouldn't do anything but read, sleep, and play basketball for maybe an hour, and pray. And I had a great place at my grandmother's house in the mountains of North Carolina, a little town called Spruce Pine, and I would actually lay for hours with a pillow on the green porch swing, and I would read, I would sleep, and I would pray, and I would listen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listening could include hearing the birds. There'd be a lot of things that I could talk about listening to, but obviously listening to God. The other thing is, and I was blessed to be able to go to Cambridge. When I would go to Cambridge, I would do the same thing. I would shut off my technology. When I first started going to Cambridge, the internet was not as advanced as it is now, and so I didn't have access to it. I would spend time in libraries. I would spend time in open spaces, and Cambridge is a great place to find those places. And honestly, when I'd go to Cambridge, I'd spend a lot of time most of the time I'd go by myself because I would work some, but I would spend time by myself. And one of the things I really learned to do in Cambridge, to help create sacred space, I learned to walk and pray, prayer walking, not in the sense of maybe I should have done this, but not in the sense of, hey, I'm praying for people in this building, but just praying for my own life and praying for my family and praying for things that were going on in my life. People would always say when I came back from Cambridge in North Carolina that I looked refreshed, that my preaching was better, whatever that means. But what happened was, what I like to describe as my body, my soul, and my mind all caught up with each other.
Sure.
Because my body would be tired, my soul might be weary, and my mind might be overtaxed. And that slowing things down and creating sacred space allowed everything to catch up. And it was very renewing spiritually and refreshing. And I want to say that in a way it strengthened my walk with Christ.
That's good. That's really good. Well, quickly, John, how would you describe if someone's going to pick up your book? How would you describe your style of writing? And just
well,
few words.
honestly, I wasn't really sure how to answer that question, but I do like to tell stories.
Yes, you do.
And the story that I tell there at the beginning, and what I heard the guy in Cambridge on the cell phone describe. Obviously, he was in a car, or a bus maybe, but he described his what happened when he was in London. You know, it's like they were trying to cross sheep across London Bridge, and I've actually seen where the cars are bottlenecked, you know, late in the day. And so my writing style, I'm a storyteller.
Yes.
And then I'm going to get around to, I work really hard not to be too preachy, but I'm going to get around to drawing the story and then making some parallel between, you know, the story I've told in Sacred Space. But I would say it's very conversational. You know, you want to. I try to write in a sense like I'm telling a story, and create enough mystery along the way so that you are curious to read on.
Right. That's good.
Yeah.
I would agree with that, and I think you do a good job.
Well, you're kind. I appreciate that.
And John, I appreciate the time. Again, if someone wanted to purchase this book, what's some ways that they can get a hold of it?
You can go to austinbrotherspublishing.com.
Okay.
And encourage you to go to Austin Brothers. I think that they'll be very timely in getting the book to you. You can also find it there on a Kindle version. It's also available on Amazon. So if you have an Amazon account and you like to do it that way, you can go to Amazon and find it in print version, have it sent to your house, mailed to your house, or also you can find it on Kindle.
Great. John, it's been a pleasure, and as always, good to see you.
And, hey, good to see you too, and we'll look forward to breakfast again soon, and hope you and your family, hope you have a great rest of the week.